What was the Latin American debt crisis in history? Have you ever wondered how a region can go from economic growth to crisis in just a few years? The Latin American debt crisis is a prime example of this dramatic shift. This financial crisis began in the early 1980s and affected many countries in Latin America. It is often referred to as the lost decade because it led to years of economic stagnation and hardship. The roots of the crisis trace back to the 1970s, when Latin American nations borrowed heavily from international banks. They needed funds to finance development projects and cover current account deficits. Rising oil prices during this time made borrowing seem like a good idea. Oil-exporting countries, with their newfound wealth, deposited large sums in international banks. These banks then lent money to Latin American governments, leading to a rapid increase in external debt. By the late 1970s, the external debt of Latin America had skyrocketed to hundreds of billions of dollars. However, several factors soon turned this borrowing into a crisis. In 1979, interest rates in the United States and Europe rose sharply. This increase made it more expensive for Latin American countries to service their debts. Additionally, as exchange rates deteriorated against the United States dollar, the burden of foreign debt grew heavier for these nations. The situation worsened with a global recession in the early 1980s. This downturn caused prices for Latin America's primary exports to fall, which meant less revenue to pay off debts. The crisis became public in August 1980, to when Mexico announced it could no longer meet its debt payments. This announcement sent shockwaves through the financial world, raising alarms among international lenders and other Latin American countries facing similar challenges. The consequences of the crisis were severe. Economic instability and recession spread across the region. Many countries experienced stagnant growth, high inflation, and increased poverty levels. Investor confidence plummeted, leading to capital flight and reduced investment. Governments were forced to implement austerity measures as part of debt restructuring agreements. These measures often led to social unrest and political instability. The Latin American debt crisis serves as a historical example of how external borrowing and global economic shifts can create significant challenges for emerging economies. It also highlights the risks associated with relying heavily on commodity exports and foreign debt for development. In response to the crisis, international institutions and creditors began to rethink their approaches to debt management and restructuring. This shift influenced global financial governance and emphasized the need for sustainable fiscal policies and economic diversification in developing countries. The Latin American debt crisis was a defining moment in economic history, reshaping the financial landscape of the region and leaving lasting impacts on economic policies and international lending practices.